I'm in the middle of making this huge table and I need to put an inlay inside it. So I'm gonna show you how I use the Shaper Origin to put a smaller inlay inside this tabletop. I'm gonna do it twice because there's actually two tables that nest together. Check it out. And I'll walk you through step by step how an inlay works with the Shaper Origin. I know Shaper Origin is an expensive tool, but this shows a little bit of that capacity for what it can do. Check it out. So what we're gonna use is this, it's about 1/8 inch plywood. I'm gonna use my calipers to get the exact dimensions because I'm not gonna have much to sand, so it needs to be precise. So what I need to do is set this under here and find a spot. And then I'm gonna tape it down as well because I don't want this to move. You've seen this a million times if you're familiar with the Shaper Origin, but we're just going to pop down some double-sided tape. And then I'm gonna put this in here. Now, a lot of people would add also some kind of spoil board to the back. This is my workbench, so I don't really care if it gets nicked just a tiny bit. That's not a big deal to me. Now I gotta grab the Shaper Origin, plug it in, scan the surface, put the graphic on here, and route it out. One thing I appreciate about the Shaper Origin is it's really easy to switch out bits. If you've ever switched out bits in a normal hand router or something like that, it's the same. It's really quick and efficient, and that's nice. Now what I'm gonna be using to cut out the shape is a 1/8 inch bit. That's gonna allow me to just go along the perimeter and get nice tight cuts to it. All right, apologies for the studio look, but I'm gonna have a second camera set up just so you can see what's going on the front of the Shaper Origin as I put the software in and calibrate everything. So first of all, I pop the router back into it and tighten it. And then from here, basically, I need to scan the surface to set up the plate and upload my design or download or apply. So I'm gonna pull this back and I'm gonna start a new scan. So I do the little green button for start scan, and now I rotate over and make sure I get a nice view of everything. And then I can say finish. The last thing I need to do is, now that I have this, I need to import the design. All right, let's import the design. Scale, we can drop that, it's 36 inches, big right now. A little bit too big. Okay, and I'm just doing the lettering here, so it also has this circle around it, but I can ignore that. So I'm gonna go, let's scale this up to 5 inches. We can go even 6 inches. I wanna just keep it within this square, so let's go 7 inches. 8 inches. Okay, perfect. So I like that, and I can make it a little bit bigger. As long as I'm within that space, it's good to go. So when I'm making the cut from the piece that I'm going to put inside the outside, so what I'm gonna inlay, I need to make sure I cut the perimeter of this piece because that's gonna go into the gap. So we're gonna say place because we like how that looks. And this is actually the only file I'm gonna use for both cutting out the piece and cutting into the actual tabletop. The reason for that is because with the plate, I can move it around, which is one of the biggest benefits of having the plate. So next thing I have to do is go to cut, and this is where I determine everything I want to do on this. So the first thing I need to do is figure out how thick this actual piece is. So with my calipers, I can tell that this is 0.23 inches thick. 0.23. So my depth here will be 0.23. Done. And then instead of online, I want to do the outside because, again, by doing the outside of the piece, it's going to give me that piece that then I can place into the inlay. Okay, I changed my bit, so I need an 1/8 inch bit. I'm going to give it, let it do a Z touch. There we go. I don't know why, if that's just my unit, someone can let me know in the comments, but whenever I do a Z-touch with the plate, it always takes like several tries of different surface areas and trying to find different spots around it. The reason I want to do a Z-touch with this so badly, and rather than doing a manual Z-touch, which you can do, is that this is going to be more precise, and with an inlay, it's pretty critical that it's precise. So now we can just turn it on and start cutting. All right, so I want to talk you through something that happened there that's just something to know. So I used the calipers and I marked it down to exactly the depth, and it was perfect. There's not even a scratch on the tabletop, so it hit the depth exactly right. Here's the problem though. Because it hit the depth exactly right, this thing kind of jostled as soon as it finished the cut, and therefore you get this little cutout right here. See this little error? That's not ideal. On the next one, I went down to 0.22 instead of 0.23, and it is just, again, that anyway, that 100th of an inch away from breaking through, and so that's going to be really easy for me to do with my fingers, but I don't risk having that little cutout bump here. Now, is this that big a deal? Not really. You could fill it pretty easily, and it's going to be fine. This is just going to take a little bit of sanding, and it's going to look great. But just so you can see the difference there. So check that out, not a scratch on the tabletop. And this is what I was really concerned about with the Z-touch, because by having it perfectly know what the surface level is, the shaper won't cut through beyond what the actual measurement is. So it's a huge benefit to get that Z-touch correct versus trying to do it yourself, because you get that perfect cut, and I didn't gouge into the surface of the work table at all, which is pretty cool. So I'm going to repeat that process a couple more times here, just so I have a few options for inlaying, because you never know, something could go wrong. And the cool thing is I can just basically take plate, take that same board, and kind of move it down and batch out those parts. All right, so there were mistakes and good things to learn. So obviously this happened on my J as well. So it came loose just because I think the surface isn't perfect, because I had once upon a time ripped this down. So it was actually, the thinness was a little bit different in some spots. So that kind of ruined that. And then I realized after I started cutting a J over here that actually my J, I was cutting online instead of outside. And it's really important that you're cutting outside, because that gets the correct thickness for when you do the inlay. Because when we go over to the table and cut the inlay, we're going to cut the inside, and that way it creates a negative of this exact space. So it's really important. If you go online, it's basically splitting that 1/8 inch bit. And so this would end up being, what would that be, a 1/16 of an inch off, which could be fine. You could do some things around it, but it's not good enough. So we got to do it right. All right, we're going to take it outside now with the Shaper Origin. The nice thing is you're cutting into a really nice work surface, but you can have confidence that it should work out because it's very technically precise. Here we go. Sorry for the blown out background and what's going to be the construction noise next door, but it's always fun when people are working on stuff. So here's the space where I'm going to put it. I'm going to have it at an angle here. And again, this is the biggest benefit of the Shaper plate if you're doing very small inlays, is that I don't have to lay out any shaper tape, and I can use that exact same design I just had, but put it right here. So check it out. Sorry for that delay. So the process is exactly the same. So I'm not going to show you the front of what I'm doing on the Origin Shaper, The only thing that's different is now that I'm out here and I'm cutting into the tabletop, I'm going to cut the inside of the shape rather than the outside. By doing so, I create a perfect negative that then will fit these, which I just sanded up, and they are ready to go and be put in there. There you go. That's what it looks like after it's routed. Obviously you can see there needs to be some sanding along the edges, but pretty good.